It's midnight in Paris. I'm Mark Owen. These are the main world news headlines from France 24. A ground invasion underway on the Turkey-Syria border. Turkey launched air attacks on northeast Syria this Wednesday. Syrian Kurds are the target less than 48 hours after Donald Trump's phone call with Recep Tayyip Erdogan and the decision to move out US forces. Trump has now condemned Turkey's military attack as a bad idea, but foot soldiers have now entered the territory. Trump has changed tack on the impeachment inquiry. The US president now says he'll cooperate if the House guarantees him his rights. That's understood to mean they only investigate what he tells them to. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, the man who Trump urged Ukraine to investigate, says Trump should be impeached. Killer at large in Germany. A suspected far-right inspired shooting in the eastern city of Halle leaves 2 dead. Shots fired outside a synagogue on the Jewish festival of Yom Kippur, and also at a nearby kebab house where the lives were lost. 1 person is under arrest, 2 are said to be on the run. Thank you very much for being with us. A ground invasion is underway on the Turkish-Syrian border. Now, reports say Turkish troops have entered the northeast of Syria, east of the Euphrates River. This follows a day of military action that has brought almost universal condemnation. It began with Turkey launching airstrikes on the northeast of Syria. 25 jets were deployed, 16 targets were struck. Artillery fire was deployed, and at this time, Turkey, it was reported, had 10,000 forces ready to move over the border. Civilians had already begun to flee the area. This, a much anticipated move following the controversial US decision to pull out its troops, but nonetheless the intensity of the Turkish swoop has shocked many observers.
Plumes of smoke rising from across the border and civilians fleeing. After days of preparation, Turkey officially launched its offensive against Kurdish-held areas in northeastern Syria on Wednesday.
Operation Peace Spring will neutralise terror threats against Turkey and lead to the establishment of a safe zone, facilitating the return of Syrian refugees to their homes.
Earlier in the day, the Kurdish-aligned Syrian Democratic Forces had called on the international community to oppose the invasion, while urging Syrian Kurds to take up arms against Turkey.
If Turkey insists on attacking and invading, we will exercise our right to defend our lives. The UN and the EU must take a strong stance against the Turkish invasion. Staying silent about these attacks would be viewed as actively supporting Turkey.
Turkish warplanes have already struck several Syrian border towns. Thousands of people have fled explosions in Ras Al Ain and Tel Abyad. The SDF said Kamishli and Ain Issa have also been hit. Meanwhile, on the other side of the border in Turkey, there have been reports that Salampınar and Nusaybin have been struck by mortar and rocket fire. Turkey's offensive comes days after the United States controversially withdrew troops from northern Syria. The Kurds have played a key role in the fight against the Islamic State group in recent years, but Ankara sees them as a threat and has long pushed for the creation of a buffer zone stretching some 30 kilometers into northern Syria that would drive Kurdish fighters away from its borders. Turkey also says such a zone would allow it to resettle nearly 2 million Syrian refugees.
Well, with the ground operation now underway, the Turkish troops going over the border. We spoke earlier with Shona Bhattacharya, our correspondent there.
This afternoon, I was at Akçakale, which is a village on the border with Syria. It's literally across just a few hundred meters away from Tel Abyad, which is one of the targets of this operation by the Turkish military. Now, after a few hours of bombing the area from the air, the Turkish military has started its ground offensive. It crossed the border at 3 different points, and it will continue. It says that it wants to continue to 35 kilometers into Syria, which would be the safe zone that it is hoping to establish in this area.
Shona Bhattacharya joined us earlier from the Turkish-Syrian border. Well, next here, live from Paris, France, then condemning Turkey's strikes on northeast Syria. This came at a specially convened session of the UN Security Council. The UN is calling for Turkey to stop, and the US President Trump, who seemed to have given that green light to Turkey to launch the attack, has now spoken out to say it's a bad idea. Trump has just been speaking on the issue.
We're getting out of the endless wars. We have to do it. And eventually somebody was going to have to make the decision. And frankly, we're getting a lot of praise from that decision. People are saying, gotta sometime bring our people back home. We're really serving, and we were serving as a police force. We had defeated ISIS. We defeated the caliphate 100%. I feel that we are doing the right thing, and I think the country feels that too. We've had tremendous support outside of the Little Washington area, and even in Washington, people are saying you're doing the right thing. Has to be done, otherwise you're never going to do it. At the same time, we're dealing with both sides. We're going to see what we can do.
In a statement this morning,
We stay with Donald Trump. Another story, but nonetheless one of world importance. Donald Trump's changed his position on cooperating with the impeachment inquiry. This, of course, could signal the end of his presidency. Earlier this Wednesday, Trump condemned it as illegitimate. His White House legal counsel signed an 8-page letter to the House committees leading the probe, saying they wouldn't play ball. This could be seen as a crime of obstruction of investigation. But now it seems Trump says that he'll cooperate if, as he puts it, he's given his rights. All this was put to him a moment ago at a news conference.
Please.
I just want to clarify something you said earlier. If Pelosi holds a vote on the floor on impeachment and commits to the rules of previous impeachment proceedings, you'll participate in that investigation?
Yeah, if the rules are fair, because I don't know exactly your definition. If Republicans get a fair shake, because the Republicans have been, look, we were very nice to them.
Donald Trump, that reaction in a news conference. The bottom line, though, he says that he's willing to change his position on the impeachment inquiry and cooperate if he's given, as he puts it, his rights. Joe Biden, the other man at the center of this affair, the man that Trump was asking Ukraine to investigate, to dig dirt on, has finally spoken out to say that he thinks Trump should be impeached.
in full view of the world and the American people, Donald Trump has violated his oath of office, betrayed this nation, and committed impeachable acts. You know, to preserve our Constitution, our democracy, our basic integrity, he should be impeached.
Next, at least 2 people have been shot dead in the German city of Halle. The attack is thought to have been of far-right motivation. One woman was shot dead near a synagogue. A heavily armed man tried to storm the place of worship. Then a man was shot dead at a Turkish kebab shop nearby. So, a man's been arrested. 2 others are said to be still at large.
Shortly after 1 p.m. local time, at least 2 assailants opened fire on the streets of Halle in eastern Germany. According to media reports, the shooting started in front of a synagogue as gunmen attempted to storm into the building. But several witnesses have said the attackers also targeted a Turkish restaurant.
An elderly woman was walking by and a man suddenly appeared behind her. He was wearing a helmet and military gear. At least it looked like a military outfit. He was carrying a rifle and had a hood covering his face. He was also carrying what looked like a grenade or some sort of firecracker. He wanted to throw it into a shop, but it hit the door and it bounced back. That's when it exploded in front of the elderly woman. It was a big bang. Then he took his rifle and started shooting.
The police are now actively searching for at least 2 armed suspects who are believed to have fled the scene with a car. One of them has been arrested.
Our forces have arrested 1 suspect. Remain vigilant at all times. Our forces are present in Halle and its surroundings. We are assessing the situation until we have all the necessary information.
According to German magazine Focus, shots have also been heard in the city of Landsberg, about 15 kilometers from Halle.
Thousands of indigenous people have been marching through Ecuador's capital, Quito, to protest against the President Lenin Moreno's decision to slash fuel subsidies. The march is headed from the north of the city to its historic centre, where a large number of security forces have been deployed following violent clashes 24 hours earlier. This is all part of a national strike. President Moreno is refusing to overturn anti-austerity measures that have triggered the worst unrest in a decade. The austerity is a condition of a $4.2 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund. Tunisia's presidential candidate Nabil Karoui has been released from custody. Let's show you the images from Tunis from a few hours ago, where the media magnate had been set free. He reached the second and decisive round of the presidential election in spite of his incarceration. The second round takes place this Sunday, the 13th of October, and it's Kais Said who is the other contender. We will be following all events in Tunisia this weekend, of course, on France 24. For more news, do stay with us.